25th. We're about to lecture 18. Here comes memo. So the wind right now is from the southeast. That's our rain direction. And it won't surprise me at all if it starts raining before the end of class. It's supposed to rain really heavy in the afternoon. So plan yourselves accordingly. I noticed last week was a little disrupted in office hours. I had dental surgery, stuff happened, you guys were all sick. So it's a normal office hour week this week. If anyone's forgotten, I've written the starting times for my office hours there. And then in your lab this week, it's more exercise tests, and it's purposeful to have you repeat over and over. Kelly. The lab quiz is on the same topics as were discussed last week, in more detail. Good question. How many of you in Sahis only, that's today's lab, haven't had an exercise test? Raise your hands. No, raise your hand. 2, 4, 6. Perfect. So I just want to point out, you need to do at least 2 exercise tests per station to get your entire section done. And I rather think, Amy, I think your group on Wednesday may have only gotten 1 test each. With 2, did they? Rocking it, perfect. So you're trying to finish off everybody in your lab section this week. And repetition makes for good learnination. This is a nice little thing, just to, a lot of the problem with doing an exercise test is it's a sequence of events. It's a process, meaning you have to complete that before you can do that. And if you don't, you can't do this before you do, so they're in order. So I just wrote them down. That's a helpful little study card before lab. So today should actually be, in terms of lecture, quite fun, because I'm not going to present any new information. You have the complete analytic kit now for dealing with electrocardiograms at any level below a practicing physician. But what we need to do is practice using it. That's the thing you haven't done enough of, is making it more automatic. So I want to remind you, you now have a series of steps to look at any, first off you say, is this an EKG? If it's a 12 lead, you look at lead AVR to make sure everything is downgoing. So if you have those 2 things, it seems to be an EKG and it was done properly, then you can start to make an interpretation of it. You get the rate. Sometimes there's no rate, sometimes there's multiple rates. You measure PR and QRS. If you get advanced, you'll start to measure the QT interval. The QT interval, you need a square root of the R to R interval to understand if it's normal or not, so I didn't want to fuss with it. But you measure the PR and the QRS interval each time. You figure out the axis if you have enough leads to do that. Remember, the rhythm step is the most complex because you have to consider the rate, the width of the QRS, the qualities of the P wave, how many are there per QRS, is it up or down, is it there at all, and the regularity of the QRS response. So this is often the hardest step, and if you remember that your decision is based on 4 properties rather than just trying to look at it and guess, you'll do better. Last time, I think, we talked about hypertrophy, and we always start with the atrial. We look for a tall P wave with lead 2, usually lead 2 or one of the primary leads. For left atrial hypertrophy, we look for a wide or notched P wave. For right ventricular hypertrophy, the R will be greater than the S in V1. And for left ventricular hypertrophy, using Scott's criteria, the deepest S in V1 or 2, plus the tallest R in V5 or 6, if that's equal to or greater than 35 millimeters, that's voltage criteria. And then pathology is suggested by extras. I don't know what else to say, but additional findings beyond voltage. Athletes will often have voltage and nothing else. But the more strangenesses you have, then you start to think, might not be normal hypertrophy. This might be pathological. And for ischemia, we saw you check each lead for a Q wave, ST segment changes, or a T wave inversion. So it's like 36 observations, but you can go quite quickly. So last time, when I was showing you some EKGs, I started to talk about localization, the spatial localization of problems, and particularly ischemia, because ischemia is based on blood flow. Blood flow comes through set arteries, and these arteries tend to provide the same areas. For instance, the left anterior descending artery, or what Doug Gross has taught you to call the anterior interventricular artery, provides the front wall of the heart. So if that's blocked, you're going to see changes that are mostly in V1 through V4. V1 and 2 are more septal, V3 and 4 are more anterior. If you see it all the way across, that would be anterior septal. By the way, what kind of problem is, what kind of ischemia if you see elevated T-wave, elevated ST segments with a downward configurate, with a downward concavity? What kind of ischemia is that? Acute. It's transmural ischemia. The entire wall is ischemic, and a heart attack's happening right now. How about, notice here, lead 1 and AVL. Where are those? 1 and AVL, so this is sort of the upper lateral wall. Notice what kind of ischemia do we have here? Old. This is a dead patch, because you have a Q wave. And by the way, notice again, the descending and look down here. Here's a normal Q wave. See how the descending and upgoing limb kiss? They are dark in the middle. See how that light is what catches my eye. I hadn't realized that until recently, but what am I looking for? I'm looking for daylight between the two limbs, and then I measure it. If it's 3/4 of a small box or longer, that's too long. So this is an old infarct up here. And then what kind of infarct do we have? 2, 3, and AVF is the diaphragmatic or inferior surface of the heart. That's usually, like 80% of people, supplied by the distal part of the right ventricle. I have to look that up. I'm not sure I just said that right. Everyone got that? So that's just a reminder. I mean, I was implying that as I was working EKGs, and I thought I'd be nice and overt about it. Okay, so let's look at an EKG. Does this look like an EKG? PQST. Okay, let's look at AVR. Down, 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 with a kind of a crappy baseline, as though the right arm wasn't prepped very well. So it seems to be an EKG, and we're going to try to analyze it. Let's get the rate. If we move this way, 300, 150, 100, 75, this we shifted. So 60 is here, it's about 65 in that range. 60, 60. Okay? Is the axis normal? Yeah, 1 and F are up. And by the way, they're almost equal in height, implying that the axis is about 45 degrees in the quadrant of normalcy. What else am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to measure conduction intervals. Where are my scissors? Yes, I found some others. Here's the PR interval, and you never, anyone who looked at this and thought right off the bat, that's first degree if you block, I deny that you can do that. But when you measure it, there's first degree if you block there. See why you're systematic? I didn't see it. if you look at the QRS duration in a primary lead, it's done in 2.5 boxes as it ought to be. So conduction intervals. You see, what's next? Rhythm. For me, the easiest way to do rhythm is to just do the mantra. PQRST, 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 PQRST. So I always see PQRST everywhere I look. I think this is a normal sinus rhythm. Oh, is it upright in lead 2? Yes. Normal sinus rhythm with created block. What's next? Ischemic? No. Hypertrophy. Hypertrophy. So we look here. It's interesting. There's almost a sense of that P wave being double humped as there is here. But nowhere is the duration convincingly more than, it's kind of on the edge. You know, if you look, I'm doing my atrial hypertrophies, and if you look down here, bottom to bottom, that's 3 boxes. Bottom to bottom, 3 boxes. That notch is almost, okay, you could say there's a suggestion of left atrial enlargement. Again, I wouldn't have known that until I looked. Notice you tend to use the primary leads for doing that. Let's see, is there evidence of right ventricular enlargement? No, the R is not taller than the S. And then for left ventricular enlargement, I'm not even inclined to measure. That is less than 10 boxes deep, and that's 10. At the most, you've got 20 millimeters of voltage. If anything, voltage looks kind of sad, not great. What are we left? What's we up to? Hypertrophy, ischemia. Ready for ischemia? Notice you see a little bit of daylight there, but you don't see it here. So I'm not sure. Again, you see a little daylight there. I'm looking at every lead. We'll come back and do T waves in a moment, but right now I'm looking for cues. You see that? And there? And that? And there? And look at P4. That ain't right. You see that? How much light there is there? And if you measure that, that's almost a little box wide. There's Q waves in this thing. Are you with me so far? So I feel pretty strongly there's a lateral old infarction here, old infarction. I can't tell what's going on down here. It is, look at, by the way, that L is mostly a QS wave. So yeah, we definitely have a left-sided infarction from the past. STT waves. So as you go through and look at the STTs, where are T waves allowed to be upside down? Hint, it's all the leads where the electrode is on the right side of the chest. So AVR, T waves upside down. V1, T wave is allowed to be upside down. And lead 3, T wave is allowed to be upside down. See lead 2? That's not strictly normal. Lead L, that's not strictly normal. F, that's not normal. Ha! These leads, this may be a hint as to where the heart attack was. Flip. So it does make me stronger in thinking there might have been an inferior infarction too, because the T waves sort of reinforce these very iffy kind of Q waves. Oh look, I didn't expect you to be as good as I am. I blew up, look at here, I blew up V4 so you can see it. I'd forgotten I did this. See, is that more obvious now that that's too wide? And then down here, I think this is V6. Yes, ma'am.
Can we go over why the T wave is okay to be upside down just one more time?
It's okay to be over here. If you're looking at it from the right-hand side, remember the T wave starts where the depolarization ends. Repolarization starts, the last cell to depolarize, strangely, is the first to repolarize. It's an arrhythmia protection. And so what you have is a negative wave in terms of ion flux. It's a negative current, and it's moving this way. So a negative current coming towards you would be down. A negative current going away from you would be up. So only right-sided leads should see it as upright. That's a good question. What does this say? This I'm proud of this. This is a 50-year-old who requested an exercise test to evaluate. He had exertional symptoms, and I said, "Have you ever had a heart attack? Have you ever?" God, it took forever for him to admit, "Yeah, I had a little heart attack." Now, do you think he's being fully candid or has full understanding when he calls this a little heart attack? He has the inferior part of his heart normally fed by the right coronary. He has the left lateral side of his heart normally fed by the circumflex artery of the left. As far as I can tell, he's had at least 2 large heart attacks, and over half of the leads in his electrocardiogram are affected. And he's having chest pain and wants to know what it is. So, okay, very good.